Hey everybody, it's Mike Young, lifestyle nutritionist with aPlantBasedDiet.org. Welcome to chapter 68 of the book Live to 150 back there, behind over there. Yeah, Live to 150. This one is about storing your food and cooking your food because as we've talked about in this book, like 80% of wellness, 80% of longevity and living to 150 or however many years you can do, 150 should be the expected lifespan anyway, in my opinion, if you do it right. Well, it involves the food, but it's not just what food you're eating. It's how are you preparing the food? How are you storing the food? All of this stuff plays a role. Now, I'm going to make an assumption here. I know I shouldn't make any assumptions that, first of all, your food outside of the container that it's in, it's stored in an environment that's not like super hot or super cold where you're spoiling, freezing. The air quality is poisoned and polluted. Those are kind of generalizations. I think I did a chapter on air quality as well. That's something that's very important to your health, air quality. But how are you going to store your food? That's another thing. Okay. How are you going to cook your food? Well, let's start off with the biggest no-no, and that's plastics. Plastic has been, it's served some good purposes over time, but unfortunately, as time has gone on, we've determined that there are endocrine disruptors in plastic, and those transfer to your food when in contact with plastic. So the general rule of thumb here for plastics is do not use them. Don't use them at all, because it's just a matter of how much of this poisonous, health-destroying compound is going to transfer into your food. So what do you use instead? You use glass. I mean, even just the surfaces that contact the food. Like I have some glass containers that have plastic tops. It's less than ideal. And of course, glass is prone to breakage. It's heavy, it's expensive. It can cut you if it breaks, but the benefits way outweigh the negative parts of it. So for storage, that's what you want to do is go with glass. And I know like you're thinking, oh, I got little kids or whatever, and what am I going to do? But I know there's BPA free plastics that are out there, and those are probably better. But the whole idea is that you don't really want to get involved in that at all. Now let's move over to the side of cookware. As I mentioned before in the chapter 42 called The Food, because there's one earlier, very early in the book called Food, that's just talking generally about how important food is in longevity and living to 150. But The Food talks about the specific in chapter 42. And for this, I said in there that I would think, in my opinion, it's best if you have maybe 50% or more of your food as raw. So if it's raw, it's going to be organic, hopefully as well, chemical free grown, and you're not going to have to cook it. All right. And you're going to get all the enzymes and benefits of living foods to your body. But if you are going to cook, of course, I had a chapter on acrylamide as well, too, which causes cancer. You want to cook below 350, so you kind of lightly cook. But what are you going to cook it in? Because once again, we run into the same issue of, okay, whatever surface it's on, it's going to be transferring what's on that surface to your food. It does. So you got to think of it that way. It's kind of like your skin. It's like, don't ever think that you're going to put something on your skin and it's not going to end up in your body. It will. Okay. Actually, unfortunately, I clean the shower and I use bleach, and that stuff it's a vapor and it gets in your eyes. Okay. I think anything that's powerful, anything that has anything of substance to it, that's transmitted either through the air or through the touch or through a surface, and that's basically everything, is going to get into either you or your food. The problem with cooking too is that cooking is done at high temperatures. So a lot of times that will allow the transfer of the molecules to happen at an even faster rate and make a more complete transfer. So it's even more dangerous when you're talking about cooked food. I've heard people say like, hey, don't microwave this, don't microwave that. And microwaving is not the best way to do anything. But even worse is the containers or the surfaces that the food is on being transferred into the food from the microwave. It's very efficient at cooking. It heats up fast, and it does it it shortens the cooking time, but it does it with a massive burst of heat. And in the way that it does it, it causes that transfer to happen even faster than it would with conventional cooking, with like a heating element or something like that. So for the cookware you're going to use on the heating elements, though, of course, going back to the microwave for 1 second, don't use plastic in the microwave either. Okay, that's kind of, I want to make sure I make that connection. Don't use plastic at all. Definitely don't use it in the microwave. You're heating that up, and really don't heat up anything that it's going to transfer anything of possible contaminant into your food in the microwave. In the conventional oven or on like a old school burner or whatever, flat cooktop, induction cooking, electric element, whatever, all these are similar. You're going to be using some type of a metal, most likely, unless you're using glass or Pyrex. Pyrex, I think, is a form of glass, but as long as it's glass, it's probably okay. It probably won't, but you've got to do some research into the specific glass you're using. If it's just straight up glass, that's great. You can use it. Now, metals are generally, there's a good rule of thumb, I'd say, in general, you don't want to use it unless it's pure stainless steel or cast iron. Now, of course, cast iron can rust, and stainless steel may not be pure. So you've got to do your research and determine what's going on with those things. The other alternatives that you see a lot of times are just various alloys that have all types of different things. If I were you, I would avoid aluminum, and I would avoid any kind of pure aluminum or any kind of aluminum alloys. I know there's been a lot of controversy over the years as to what aluminum may or may not do to the body. That people have said don't use, antiperspirants because they contain aluminum. Usually deodorants don't contain it. But I have a whole chapter, of course, in this book on antiperspirants and deodorants. Check that out too. But you definitely do not want to use aluminum in your cookware or any other metals, as far as I'm concerned, because you're taking a risk. And a lot of living to 150 is just minimizing that risk and making smart decisions and not just doing things that we really don't know much about. So I would stick with stainless steel, which is available just about anywhere, and also cast iron. And again, I would not be cooking most of your food. I would rather see you eating mostly raw foods. So the cooking is going to be a smaller portion of that, or maybe you'll have someone else prepare them. And if you have someone else prepare your food, you've got to know what they're cooking it on too. Ask the right questions. If you got a personal chef, a meal service, you're ordering things on the internet, how are they doing this? Please ask all these questions of whoever you're getting your food from. Even the restaurants, ask the restaurants. I bet you, if you ask a restaurant these kinds of questions, they'd be like, no one has ever asked me this before. Now, let's talk about something that's even worse than using the wrong metal in your cookware to heat things up, is using non-stick anything. I know people like these muffin pans. Hey, don't have to spray them. Actually, you shouldn't spray them anyway. That's oil. We get into a whole thing with that in terms of what you can use that are alternatives. I could probably do a whole chapter on that just for what to use to keep baked goods from sticking to cookware. But then again, if you've been watching this book or listening to this book so far, you know that I don't want you to have that many baked foods. In general, baked foods are not going to be health optimizing. They're going to be more on the health destroying side, especially when we're talking about baked desserts and things like that, cakes and different versions, cookies, things like that. So the nonstick problem is that you've got these chemicals that are fused into the surface of the metal. And as we know, they wear off over time, right? If you ever had a nonstick cookware at first, wow, it's a uniform coating. It's like so slick and nothing sticks to it. But over time, it starts to wear down. Now, where do you think that goes when it's wearing down? It's going into the food. Most of it's just going right into the food because you're heating everything up, and then you are just moving it around in this cookware, or it's stable and it's heating up, and it's just transferring it in to the food. So then you're eating these nonstick chemicals, and I don't need to pull out any scientific studies. You know this is going to be bad for you. So you do not ever want to use any of that stuff. Now, other materials besides this, like ceramics and other things, again, I don't know what that is either. I know that over time, there's been scares. I'm 52 years young. I've been around since 1970. Been kind of scares, like just with regular old dishes that you have in your kitchen that you're serving food on, that they have lead in them because they're made in Mexico or something. You have to do all your research. There's a lot of research you need to do. It's a very important aspect. So do not assume that, oh, well, look, I've done all this other stuff right. I don't need to worry about the plates I'm serving on, or the glasses I'm drinking out of, or the stuff that's my food is being cooked in. And yes, you do. You definitely need to take care of this. These are just one of the many, many things that's going to affect your longevity. And of course, ask the right questions at restaurants. So say to the restaurant industry, it's a whole other chapter. It's pretty bad right now. But if and when people start asking all these questions, the restaurant industry is going to have the motivation to change because they're going to see people voting with their dollars and wanting to go to these places. And that's one of the positive things I hope is produced from this book here, this latest project of mine, is that maybe it'll plant some ideas in your head and you'll either do these things when you go out, you'll tell restaurant owners, or maybe you'll brainstorm and dream of something else. Something else will be triggered in your mind because of what I said in one of these chapters. So that pretty much summarizes, let me summarize. No plastics, no metals except for cast iron and pure stainless steel. There's all different kinds of grades of stainless steel. I don't claim to be an expert on it. They're coming out with new stuff every day. I don't want to endorse anything in particular, but supposedly word on the street is that Salad Master makes the best stuff. It's also ridiculously expensive. So go out there and see what is the best value for you. But do know that anything you cook in, anything you put the food on is going to transfer into your food, and you're going to eat part of that as well. If you think about it that way, and you keep reminding yourself of that, you'll have the motivation to make the right choices when it comes to cookware. Maybe you're watching this chapter and you're like, oh shit, I got to go in to my kitchen now and I got to get rid of all the stuff. Maybe sell it on Facebook Marketplace or whatever else cheap. Go do some research online, do some good research, and buy what's needed for you so that you can preserve your health and hopefully live to 150. So that's all I got for this chapter. If you got some value out of it, please hit the like button. Of course, subscribe so you hear about the newest videos first. Hit the bell for notifications, and we'll see you in the next chapter. Bye-bye.